I'm Amber. Welcome to my first video ever on this channel. Woohoo! In this video I have made Marshmallow's Chicken's mascot, but in 3D. Marshmallow's Chicken is a Twitch streamer and a friend of mine. They have also commissioned me for their Twitch emotes, which is partially why I made this video. The programs that I have used here is Clip Studio Paint for the references and Blender for the 3D modeling. Blender is a free software for 3D modeling, so you can use it whenever you want. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button, as I have 0 subscribers whilst making this video, and that's kind of sad. Anyways, on to the video. So, first off, I decided to make a ref for the character, since I need to see what the character would look front facing and side facing. As you can see on the lower left, you can see the L icon for Marshmallow's Twitch. Here you'll see a question mark because no matter how I made the eyes, they just didn't look good to me. And here I start on the second side view. This is so I can see what the mohawk and the beak and the tail would look like from the side. It's very important to know what they look like since I'm doing 3D, so I have to see all the dimensions. After looking up what a chicken's tail actually looked like, I realised that it's more puffier than spiky, so I made it a bit poofier and added more layers to it. And now I start with the line art. It looks black, but I use a dark brown instead because it just makes it pop out a bit more when there's colours with it. Here I realise that Marsh's mascot actually has 4 fingers, or well, 3 fingers and a thumb, so I add that in during the line art. You'll see a lot of me duplicating certain line art pieces because honestly it's just easier. Here I realised that I can actually just have the eyes closed rather than open, since I just didn't like them open, so I closed them. I then start to line art the side view. After that, I fill drawing in with blue. I don't know why I do that. It's mainly just to make sure that there are no white pixels in the colouring. After that, I add a layer and clip it to the blue layer and start colouring it in, as you can see. I use a magic wand to select certain areas and then just colour them in. Making sure to get the markings as similarly as I can to the markings in the reference. Then I go into Blender. As per usual with Blender, you get rid of the default cube, and then I start to add in the references at a certain angle so I can do front and side. Then I add in a cylinder and start to extrude and scale. Extruding, for those who don't know what it is basically adding more mesh to the mesh. And then scaling just makes it either bigger or smaller depending how you want it. I then bevel it to make it a bit smoother. After that, I use the colours from the reference and add them in, and start on the leg, extruding, rotating and scaling again, and beveling here and there if I need it. I'm not the best with feet, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm not the best at modelling either. I've just started, properly started basically, a couple months ago for college. So it's not gonna be the best, but I am proud of how it turned out in the end. Then I rotate it and put it to the body. I then duplicate it for the second leg. After that, I add in a cube and add a subdivision modifier, which basically gives it more geometry, so that it looks, I guess, more circular rather than cubish, but it remains with the edited cube so you can mess around with it, as you can see I'm doing here. I'm trying my best to make it look beak-like by making the middle hollow, making it a bit more round, adding the little like stubby bits at the side. And yeah, I think it looked pretty well, so I like it. Once I scale it down and make it a bit thinner, I duplicate and rotate it to make the bottom end. I then also make the stubby bits at these sides go in so they're not there, and make it link up to the stubby bits on the top, just to make it look like it's smiling, because no, we don't want a sad chicken. Then I put it to the body. After that, I colour it in. Then I add a circle and scale it up a little bit to make it more oval, and duplicate it a bunch of times, just doing random scales to give it a different shape. And basically I'm just trying to block out the mohawk. That's what I keep calling it, I just don't know what exactly it is. I then join it together and give it a colour. I then decided that I need to texture it a bit differently, obviously for the markings, so I go into the UV editor, which is basically cutting the mesh open and laying it flat, as you can see on the side. After that, I turn it into a texture, image texture, and I add in the little markings. once I am satisfied with the markings, I do the same to the hair by going into UV editing and unwrapping it to make it more flat. This one is a bit harder as they're all joined together and you can't really get to the lines as easily, but I managed to do it, so that's pretty good. After that, I make a new image texture and start to do the markings on the hair. It is a bit harder doing the textures on the hair since I can't really get into the creases as good, but I am satisfied with how it came out in the end. Now I'm just trying to go into the creases to cover it up as much as I can. After that, I add in a plane, scale it down and go into edit mode. I then extrude, scale, rotate to make the little closed eyes. Once I'm satisfied with the shape, I go into the modifiers and add in Solidify Modifier, which basically changes it from a 2D plane into a 3D cube-ish, whatever shape that is. And I add a subdivision modifier to make it a bit more smooth. After that, I add in colour. Then I move the bottom part of the beak to make it more positioned and start to change the texture, just to give it a little more colour, I guess. I then add in a sphere to start on the tail, but I think I lost the footage for that, so unfortunately you won't see it. But it's basically similar to what I'm doing now. I just use a cylinder to get the basic shape, then I add more cylinders and duplicate it basically just to make it look like how it should be. Then I go into UV editing and unwrap it again. After that, I add colour to it and put it to the model. The only bit left is the wings, so I get another cylinder. As you can tell, I really love cylinders in Blender, and I get out the basic shape. And since the wing has 4 fingers, I guess, finger feathers, I add in another cylinder to make the thumb. After that, I duplicate and edit it a little bit to make the other finger feathers. Once I'm happy with it, I go into sculpt mode. And I just edit the shape a little bit, smooth it out, make the fingers more defined. and basically make it more wing-like. Once I'm happy with the shape, I rotate it and put it to the body, and then I duplicate it, rotate it again, and put it on the other side, and then colour it. For some reason, the image textures broke, so I had to redo them. I did the same process of making it an image texture, drawing it in, and then adding the markings once everything was covered. Luckily this time I actually had the eyes here, so I knew whereabouts the marking should start and end. I then retextured the hair, and this time I realised that you could actually paint on the UV editing area, so instead of having dark areas in between the creases, I made it all pink. Then I added in the red parts. After that, I join the mesh together and start adding in Armature. Armature is basically how you make the mesh pose. It's kind of like the skeleton of the mesh. You add in different bones where the bones should be, and then it can manipulate the mesh however you want it. First I add in the right side, and after I name all the bones, I then symmetrize it to the other side. I also add in the tailbone as well. Once that is done, I parent it to the mesh so that it adds automatic weights. Weights is basically how the mesh, how the bones manipulate the mesh. After playing around with it a little bit, I realised that the automatic weights haven't really done it that well, so I do it myself basically. This way the mesh is manipulated how I want it to be. As you can see, the red is the most manipulative, and the green, yellow, orange areas are less manipulated. Here I'm just trying to think of poses. I decided to go with the hands on hip as like a kind of sassy look to it. I realised that one of the bones was pulling on the beaks, so I had to remove them from the weights. Then I carry on to pose it. I make the leg go back and kind of do this I'm sassy standing pose. I don't know why, I just thought it really fit with the character. Once I'm happy with the posing, I add it to the modifiers, and I decided to try and sculpt it a little bit, but it didn't work out, so I scrapped that idea. I then added a plane and extrude it up, whilst also adding the bevel modifier to make it a bit more smooth. I then add a camera to render an image. You need a camera to be facing at the mesh so you can actually render it. Then I start to add lights to make it look a bit better, since you need lights to actually see things. Add a couple lights to see how it works. Basically, all this is a run-in test. It's just a testing phase. You don't actually know specifically how it's gonna look, so you just see if it works, and then if it does, you just add it. I then duplicate the plane to make this sort of arena, just in case I wanted to do something a bit different. After that, I put it to cycles and then change it back to Eevee. Then I change the colouring of the lights to give it a bit more warm. Then I start to render the images. After that, I decided that it weren't smiling enough, so I went back and started messing around with the mesh, just to try and make it look like it's a bit happy. And that's the end of the video. Here are the rendered images, and I hope you liked it.